On the 23rd floor of a high-rise office building in downtown Seattle, Emily Johnson was once again facing her computer screen. Even past 8 o'clock in the evening, only a few employees, including herself, remained in the office. For her, working as a manager at the IT company Tech Solutions, this was nothing unusual. On Emily's desk sat a single family photograph. Taken 5 years ago, it was the last family photo showing her with her father William, mother Margaret, and younger sister Sophia. Her father had suddenly passed away from a heart attack the following year. From that day forward, Emily's life had changed dramatically. After her father's death, she was forced to become the family's breadwinner to support the remaining debts and her mother and sister's livelihood. Margaret had been a stay-at-home wife, supporting the household. Sophia only had part-time work, and her income was unstable. Emily took on this responsibility without hesitation. For 15 years since graduating from college, she had steadily built her career and achieved her current position. Starting as a technician, she had climbed to a management role through her natural sense of responsibility and drive for improvement. Her annual salary exceeded $100,000, a blessed income for a woman of her generation. After her father's death, Emily first purchased a suburban house where her mother and sister lived. She prepared $50,000 as a down payment and took on the monthly mortgage payments herself. Next, she bought a car for her sister's commute. Though it was used, she chose a reliable make, considering safety. Furthermore, she transferred $1,500 monthly into her mother's account for living expenses. This amount was calculated to ensure both women could live comfortably. Meanwhile, Emily's own life was modest. She lived alone in a small apartment in Seattle, kept dining out to a minimum, and bought only the bare essentials for clothing. She rarely took vacations for travel, and her social life was limited due to work demands. Most of her savings went to her family, and she had begun to feel guilty about spending money on herself. Her mother Margaret expressed gratitude to Emily on the surface. When they spoke on the phone, she would say, "I'm so grateful you're here to help us," and Emily felt rewarded by this. However, lately, she had been feeling small inconsistencies more frequently. Her sister Sophia worked as a part-time sales clerk at a local boutique. Working about 3 days a week, her income should have been around $800 monthly. However, looking at her social media posts, Emily frequently saw photos of her dining at restaurants with friends and wearing new clothes. Such a lifestyle should have been difficult on a part-time salary alone. Emily sometimes questioned whether her choices had been right. Her college friends had married, had children, and built their own families. She too had once considered marriage with a man, but given her family's financial burden, she couldn't prioritize her own life. That relationship naturally came to an end. Still, Emily continued her current lifestyle out of love and responsibility for her family. Every weekend, she called her mother and sister to check on them. Once a month, she visited their house to see if they needed anything. She told herself that if her father were alive, he would surely be proud of her dedication. However, on nights like this when she remained alone in the office, gazing out at Seattle's nightscape through the window, a sense of loneliness would overwhelm her heart. Her colleagues had returned to their families, gathering around warm dinner tables. Emily's dinner was, as usual, a sandwich and coffee bought from the deli. On the second Saturday of March, Emily visited her family's house for the first time in a while to celebrate her mother's birthday. An hour-and-a-half drive from Seattle, the 3-bedroom house in a quiet residential area in suburban Tacoma was one Emily had purchased 3 years ago. The lawn was well maintained, and colorful flower planters lined the entrance. It was a fine home that compared favorably with neighboring houses. Opening the front door, she was greeted by the sweet scent of vanilla. Her mother was probably baking her specialty carrot cake. Stepping into the living room, she found beautifully arranged dishes on the table. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, grilled seasonal vegetables, and Margaret's birthday cake. It was as luxurious as a restaurant spread. "Emily, thank you for coming," Margaret warmly welcomed her daughter. Her mother's hair was styled at the beauty salon, and she wore an elegant pearl necklace. She looked healthy and radiant. "Happy birthday, Mom." "What a lovely meal," Emily said, handing her mother a bouquet. Sophia helped me. Her cooking skills have really improved lately, Margaret smiled proudly. Just then, her sister Sophia appeared from the kitchen. Emily caught her breath. What Sophia had over her shoulder was clearly a high-end designer handbag. It was from Chanel's new collection, something that should have cost over $5,000. It was completely out of reach for someone working part-time at a boutique. Hey, sis, it's been a while, Sophia greeted her as if nothing was unusual. That bag is very lovely, Emily said, trying to keep her voice natural. Oh, this? It was a gift from a friend. My birthday was coming up, Sophia answered casually. However, Emily knew her sister's birthday was in August. She had never heard of receiving birthday presents in March. As the meal began, the conversation naturally turned to catching up. Margaret cheerfully talked about the knitting circle she had recently joined, and Sophia amusingly shared stories from her workplace. While watching the two women's bright demeanor, Emily felt a growing sense of unease. By the way, I went to Season's Grill with Lisa last week, Sophia mentioned casually. Apparently they have a new chef, and it was really delicious. Emily was inwardly surprised. Season's Grill was a famous upscale restaurant in the city. With course meals costing $150 per person, it was a place Emily herself only visited once a year for special occasions. How could her part-time working sister casually dine at such a place? That sounds like a lovely restaurant. Was it a special occasion? Emily asked probingly. No, we just hadn't seen each other in a while. Mom came along too, didn't you? Sophia gave her mother a meaningful look. Yes, it was wonderful. I'm happy that I've been able to go out with my daughters more often lately, Margaret answered with satisfaction. Questions swirled in Emily's mind. The $1,500 she sent monthly was meant to cover basic living expenses like rent, mortgage payments, utilities, and food. It wasn't an amount that included dining at expensive restaurants. Yet the two were enjoying such luxuries. While eating dessert cake, Emily listened to her mother and sister's conversation. They discussed plans to see a movie next week and a spa trip planned for the following month. None of these were inexpensive entertainments. Where are you going for the spa trip? Emily asked. Lake Tahoe. We're planning 3 nights and 4 days, Margaret answered. Sophia found a wonderful resort. Emily knew the rates for Lake Tahoe resorts. For 3 nights and 4 days, it would cost at least $800 per person. For both of them to go would mean over $1,600 in expenses. That sounds nice. But isn't that rather expensive? Emily chose her words carefully. Don't worry. We've been saving bit by bit too, Sophia answered lightly. We need to enjoy ourselves sometimes. Hearing those words, Emily's chest tightened. Saving bit by bit? Were they using the living expenses she sent to fund their travel? Meanwhile, Emily couldn't remember when she had last taken a proper vacation. As she was leaving, Emily hugged her mother. While saying, "Let's meet again next month," complex feelings crossed her mind. She felt pride in supporting her beloved family, but something didn't sit right. During the drive back to Seattle, Emily continued thinking about what she had seen that day. Sophia's luxury bag, frequent dining out, the planned spa trip. All of it seemed to exceed the range of the living expenses she was sending. The following week, Emily had lunch with her colleague Jennifer while casually discussing her family. Jennifer was a single mother raising a 16-year-old son alone. She too was a woman carrying economic responsibility by herself. I'm supporting my mother and sister, but lately there have been some things that concern me, Emily carefully broached the topic. What kind of things? Jennifer asked with interest. I have some questions about how the living expenses I send are being used. They seem to be going to expensive restaurants and planning trips. Jennifer thought for a moment before answering. That would concern me. If my son were using money that way, I'd be worried. Of course, occasional enjoyment is necessary, but there should be limits. Right. But I'm reluctant to ask directly, Emily sighed. I think transparency is especially important with money matters between family members. Especially when you're in the position of providing support, Jennifer advised with genuine concern. That night, Emily reviewed her household accounts in her apartment. Looking back over the past 3 years of expenses, she found that remittances to her family accounted for nearly 40% of her income. During that time, her own savings had barely increased, and her emergency fund wasn't sufficient. If her mother and sister were using her remittances for purposes other than living expenses, wouldn't that be problematic? Emily loved her family, but she also needed to think about her own future. Preparing for retirement and potential illness was also important. A few days later, Emily gathered her courage and called her mother. "Mom, how is life lately? Are you having any financial difficulties?" "I'm fine, Emily. Thanks to you, we're really being helped." Margaret's voice was bright. "I'm glad to hear that. But if you have some leeway, I was thinking it might be okay to adjust the remittance amount," Emily tentatively suggested. There was silence on the other end of the phone for a while. "Oh no. We still need it. Sophia's income is unstable, and house maintenance costs money. I'm truly grateful to you, but it would help if you could continue a bit longer." At that moment, she could hear Sophia's laughter in the background. Fragments of conversation about making reservations at expensive restaurants could be heard. Emily felt her chest tighten. After hanging up, Emily sighed deeply. Her heart was torn between her love for her family and her own doubts. On the third Thursday of April, Emily was working overtime as usual. Even past 9 in the evening, days of being pressed by project deadlines continued. She was the only one left in the office, with only the sound of her typing echoing in the silence. Her coffee cup was already empty, and fatigue weighed heavily on her shoulders and neck. While she was concentrating on her computer screen, her smartphone chimed with a notification. It was from social media, showing Sophia Johnson has started a live stream. Emily frowned slightly. She had never heard of her sister doing live streams. At first she thought to ignore it, but being tired from work, she wanted a mental break. Thinking it would probably just be casual conversation with friends, she lightly tapped the link. What appeared on the screen was the familiar living room of her mother's house. Sophia and Mother Margaret were sitting side by side on the sofa. On the coffee table in front of them were a wine bottle and 2 glasses. The bottle was already about half empty, and both seemed to be in high spirits. "Good evening, everyone," Sophia waved at the screen. "Tonight Mom and I will bring you some girl talk." On the right side of the screen, comments from viewers flowed continuously. Greetings and questions from friends and acquaintances lined up. Emily didn't want her presence known, so she continued watching quietly without commenting. "How are things lately? Is work going well?" a viewer asked, and Sophia answered. "Work? Well, I'm just doing it casually," Sophia laughed while sipping wine. "It's only 3 days a week, so there's not much stress." When a comment saying "I'm jealous" of flowed by, Margaret joined the conversation. "This girl has always been clever. She can live properly without going through hardships." Emily stared at the screen, feeling uneasy. Sophia's situation of living properly should have been possible only because of her own financial support. "But don't you worry about money?" another viewer asked. Sophia and Margaret looked at each other and smiled meaningfully. "Worry? Not at all," Sophia answered. "We have a convenient housekeeper at home." "Housekeeper?" "Yes, a housekeeper who brings us money," Sophia laughed loudly. "Every month she properly brings us $1,500. And she doesn't complain at all." Emily's hands trembled. On the screen, her sister was calling her a housekeeper. "Are you talking about your older sister?" one of the viewers guessed. "That's right," Margaret chimed in. "I have a daughter named Emily. She's serious and has a strong sense of responsibility. She's really helpful. But in the end, an older sister is just a housekeeper who provides money, right?" Sophia seemed to have lost her inhibitions as the alcohol took effect. "Even though we made her buy a house and car, she's still working hard. It's really laughable." Margaret nodded in agreement. "That girl has always been too serious. She doesn't know how to enjoy her own life." But thanks to that, we get to take it easy, Sophia raised her wine glass. Because big sister works, we can do what we want. We should be grateful. The two began laughing heartily. That laughter cut deep into Emily's heart. Last week's spa trip was amazing too, wasn't it, Mom? Sophia continued. Yes, the massage and facial treatments were all perfect. Let's go again, Margaret answered. Next month, I want to make a reservation at that new French restaurant. I heard the chef got a Michelin star, Sophia's eyes sparkled. Good idea. Thanks to little Emily, we can live well too. Emily pressed the record button on her smartphone with trembling hands, quietly beginning to record every word of the conversation continuing on the screen. Big sister doesn't have a boyfriend, and she doesn't have many friends either, Sophia continued. She only works and doesn't enjoy life. But that's convenient for us. It's pitiful in a way, Margaret sighed. But that's just her personality, so it can't be helped. Her sense of responsibility is too strong. That's right, that's why she's easy to use, Sophia said without shame. If you say, it's for the family, she'll do anything. Comments from viewers were also becoming increasingly critical of their statements. However, the two women, intoxicated, didn't seem to notice. But I wonder how long it will continue, Margaret said with slight concern. Don't worry, Mom, Sophia answered with confidence. She'll never abandon us. Her family love is too strong. That's also her weakness. That's right, we can feel secure, Margaret regained her smile. Emily desperately held back tears that threatened to fall. For 15 years, she had continued working for her family, only to discover that to them, she was merely a housekeeper who brings money. Moreover, they were laughing about this fact while broadcasting it to the entire world. I wish the viewers could have convenient family members too, Sophia spoke to the screen. We're really lucky. That's right, I'm grateful to Emily, Margaret added. However, her tone didn't convey genuine gratitude. The broadcast continued for about another 30 minutes. During that time, the two spoke in detail about their luxurious lifestyle, treating Emily's devotion as a matter of course. Occasionally, critical comments from viewers flowed by, but the two dismissed them lightly in their drunken state. Should we wrap this up soon? Sophia said, and Emily stopped recording. About an hour of the broadcast had been completely recorded. After the screen went dark, Emily sank deeper into her chair. The office silence returned, and she could only hear her own heartbeat. All the unease she had been feeling became clear tonight. To her mother and sister, she wasn't family, she was just a convenient source of funding. Emily replayed the recorded video to confirm once more. Without doubt, their true feelings were recorded. The words, just a housekeeper who provides money, easy to use, and that's her weakness, echoed repeatedly in her head. Wiping away tears, Emily stood up. Now that her long-held doubts had turned to certainty, there was no need to hesitate anymore. Having learned the truth, the time had come to reclaim her own life. As she left the office and walked to her car, Emily took a deep breath. 1 week later, on Thursday morning at 9 o'clock, 2 notifications arrived almost simultaneously on Margaret and Sophia's cell phones. Margaret was making coffee in the kitchen when she looked at her smartphone screen. It was a message from First National Bank. The subject line read, "Important notice regarding housing loan co-guarantor." She frowned as she opened the message. Dear Ms. Margaret Johnson, we have received and accepted an application from Ms. Emily Johnson, the co-guarantor of your housing loan, to withdraw from her co-guarantor status. This application is legally valid and takes effect immediately. Therefore, you will need to make future monthly payments yourself. The remaining loan balance is $312,000, with monthly payments of $2,400. Please contact us if you have any questions. The coffee cup slipped from Margaret's hands and shattered on the kitchen floor. $2,400. It was an amount that she and Sophia's combined income could never afford. Meanwhile, Sophia, who was watching TV in the living room, also received a notification from City Trust Bank on her phone. Ms. Sophia Johnson, we are contacting you regarding the automatic transfer settings to your account. The regular monthly transfer of $1,500 from Ms. Emily Johnson has been stopped as of today. This change was made at the request of the sender. There are no future transfer plans. Please contact customer service if you have any questions. Sophia read the screen 2-3 times. She couldn't believe it. She had never even considered that Emily would stop the remittances. Mom. Sophia rushed into the kitchen. There she found her mother staring blankly at the scattered coffee cup fragments on the floor. What's wrong? Emily. Margaret's voice was shaking. She's withdrawing as loan co-guarantor. Sophia showed her phone screen to her mother. The remittances to my account have stopped too. The two looked at each other and simultaneously understood the gravity of the situation. The monthly housing loan payments and living expense remittances, totaling $3,900 in income, had suddenly been lost. Sophia's part-time income was about $800 monthly, and Margaret's Social Security pension was $1,200. Together, they only amounted to $2,000. Let's call Emily right away, Margaret frantically dialed her daughter's number. After 3 rings, Emily answered. However, her voice was clearly different from her usual warm tone. Good morning, Mom. Emily, I got a call from the bank. About the loan and the remittances, Margaret's voice was strained. Isn't this some kind of mistake? It's not a mistake, Emily's voice was calm. I arranged everything myself. But why? So suddenly? It wasn't sudden, Mom. I've been preparing for a week, Emily answered matter-of-factly. Last Thursday night, I saw your live stream. Margaret and Sophia froze. Sophia frantically grabbed the phone. Sis, that was just a joke. We were drunk, so we said things carelessly. A joke? For the first time, emotion entered Emily's voice. Just a housekeeper who provides money, easy to use, that's her weakness. Was that a joke? Emily, please, Margaret took back the phone. We really are grateful. We just got a bit carried away that time. For 15 years, I loved you as family, Emily's voice was quiet but filled with firm resolve. But to you, I wasn't family. I was just a convenient ATM. That's not true. Sophia shouted. You're my precious sister. Really? Emily asked coldly. Then why did you never say such things to my face? Why did you mock me laughing during a live stream? The two couldn't answer. I've already decided, Emily continued. I will no longer provide you with financial support. I've decided to live my own life. Wait, Emily, Margaret's voice was desperate. Let's talk this through. There must be a solution. There's nothing more to discuss, Emily declared. That live stream made your true feelings very clear. I have the recording too, so if necessary, I can show it to a lawyer. Sophia's face went pale. Recording? The full hour, Emily answered. Next time you're in trouble, watch that recording and remember how I felt working for 15 years. Emily, please, Margaret's voice was about to break into tears. We can't pay the house loan. What are we supposed to do? That's your problem, Emily answered coldly. I'm no longer the family ATM, figure it out yourselves. But we're blood-related family, aren't we? Sophia pleaded. Blood relation alone doesn't make family, Emily's voice held deep sadness. Real family members respect and cherish each other. You just used me. Over the phone, Emily took a deep breath. I've signed a lease for a new apartment. I'm moving next week. I won't give you the address. You're not included in my new life. Emily. Margaret and Sophia shouted simultaneously, but the phone had already been hung up. The two stood in stunned silence. On the kitchen floor, coffee cup fragments still lay scattered. It took time to accept reality. What should we do, Mom? Sophia's voice trembled. We really can't pay the loan. Margaret sank into a chair. She's serious. We have to persuade her somehow. Sophia dialed Emily's number again, but it didn't even ring. She realized it had been set to reject incoming calls. Over the following days, the two tried various ways to contact Emily. They called her workplace but were told private contacts are not accepted. Emails went unanswered. They tried to contact her through mutual acquaintances, but Emily hadn't told anyone her whereabouts. A week later, Margaret and Sophia were forced to face reality. Unable to pay the housing loan and short on living expenses, Sophia began looking for full-time work, and Margaret painfully realized that her pension alone was nowhere near sufficient. "We really did something terrible," Margaret said to Sophia. "But we never imagined it would come to this." Sophia was filled with regret. "Did we ever consider her feelings?" Margaret said as if questioning herself. "For 15 years, she continued working for us." For the first time, the two began to consider things from Emily's perspective. But it was too late. What they had lost wasn't just money. They had lost a truly loving family member. 3 months later, in a small cafe in Seattle's Capitol Hill district, Emily was showing a genuine smile for the first time in a long while. This place, a 5-minute walk from her new apartment, had become her favorite. "Emily, would you like to go hiking with everyone this weekend?" Rachel, sitting next to her, suggested. She was a friend Emily had met shortly after moving. "That sounds wonderful," Emily smiled. "I'd love to spend time in nature for a change." Being able to have such conversations felt fresh to Emily. Now freed from her family's financial burden, she was finally able to have time for herself. With the monthly remittances gone, her savings had begun to grow steadily. Meanwhile, in suburban Tacoma, Margaret and Sophia's lives had completely changed. Unable to keep up with housing loan payments, the two had ultimately been forced to give up that house. They now lived modestly in a small apartment in the city. Sophia found a full-time job at a local supermarket. Working as a cashier 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, the busyness was incomparable to her part-time days, but it was necessary for survival. Dining at expensive restaurants and spa trips had become distant memories. Margaret also began working 3 days a week as a receptionist at a nearby nursing home to supplement the living expenses that her pension alone couldn't cover. "I wonder if there's any way to contact Emily," Margaret said to Sophia one night. "She's still blocking calls," Sophia sighed. "Even if I go to her workplace, they won't let me see her anymore." The two regretted their actions every day. They understood that their careless remarks during that live stream had been the trigger for losing everything. However, they couldn't turn back time. Emily was building truly meaningful relationships in her new environment. The apartment manager couple, the cafe owner nearby, members of the book club she met at the library. They all respected Emily as a person, and she treated them the same way. "You're such a caring person," said Betty, a book club member. Betty was a woman living alone after losing her husband. "Caring for family is wonderful, but it's meaningless unless you also care for yourself." Emily nodded. "I finally understand. Real family isn't just about blood relations." "That's right. Relationships where people respect and support each other are what make real family," Betty smiled gently. "You're surrounded by such people now, aren't you?" Indeed, Emily was surrounded by people who cared about her. They helped each other in times of trouble, shared joys, and shared sorrows. This was the kind of relationship she had been seeking for years. On a day when autumn was deepening, Emily happened to meet her former colleague on the street. At that time, she heard about Margaret and Sophia's current situation. She learned that the two were in financial difficulty and spoke words of regret every day. "Why don't you try contacting them?" the colleague suggested, but Emily shook her head. "It's too late," Emily answered quietly. That night, they spoke their true feelings. If that was the truth, being apologized to now would be meaningless. Emily was truly moving forward. She used her personal savings to begin small investments and was preparing for her future. On that year's Christmas Eve, Emily was enjoying a warm house party with Rachel and her book club friends. Laughter was constant, and heartfelt conversations continued. During the gift exchange, thoughtful presents considering each other's hobbies and preferences were shared. "Next year is going to be even more wonderful," Rachel said. Yes, I'm sure it will be, Emily agreed wholeheartedly. That same night, in the Tacoma apartment, Margaret and Sophia were spending a quiet Christmas Eve. Without their former extravagance, they shared a modest meal together. I wonder if Emily will forgive us next year, Margaret murmured. However, before seeking forgiveness, they needed to truly understand their actions and genuinely repent. And they had to start by accepting the reality that Emily would never come back. As Emily prepared to welcome the new year, she kept an important lesson close to her heart. Blood relation alone doesn't make family. People who respect and cherish each other are what make real family. And everything begins with valuing oneself.